Hi, this is Stephanie Miller from The Stephanie Miller Show. Please enjoy this exclusive clip from my show on Political Voices Network. You said I discussed with Stephanie Rule way after my bedtime the nugget of prosecution gold in Pence's book that further proves Donald Trump's corrupt intent. Do tell. Tell me what you told the other Steph.
People are like, well, isn't this just more of the same? Pence already talked in his book. Pence wrote an op-ed. Pence has gone on Fox Entertainment giving interviews. And here's why this is concretely different. None of those statements are admissible in court, right? We had so many statements that we heard, for example, from Cassidy Hutchinson during the January 6th hearing. What did she testify to? Pat Cipollone told me that Donald Trump said the following. Mark Meadows told me that Donald Trump said the following. Steph, for 8 hours yesterday, the very vice president who served Donald Trump testified, and he related under oath deeply and sharply incriminating evidence, and it came right out of the orange horse's mouth himself. That is directly admissible at the future trial as a statement of a party opponent. That's why it was so valuable when Pence testified. I agree with Zoe Lofgren. I actually believe he testified truthfully because he, falsely believes he has a political future and he doesn't want to catch a perjury charge by lying in the grand jury. Yeah. But when he says things like, Donald Trump pressured me relentlessly, told me I was a wimp if I didn't go along with this corrupt scheme, called me the P word, said he made a mistake asking me to be his vice president. And here is the gold, the prosecutorial gold. He said, Donald Trump at one point when he was pressuring me said, you know what your problem is, Pence? You're too honest. Bingo. You know what that gives us prosecutors the opportunity to prove? Donald Trump's corrupt intent. He knew what he was asking Pence to do was dishonest. That is evidentiary manna from heaven.
Yeah, well, first of all, can you tell us, because yesterday we thought, he's going to still try to not testify. What exactly happened with it? He ended up testifying for like 5 hours yesterday, right?
Yeah, it was crazy. What happened was the appellate court in D.C. on Thursday afternoon ruled that Donald Trump can't use executive privilege to stop Mike Pence from testifying. And 9 a.m. the next day, yesterday, I guess, he arrives at the courthouse and spends 8 hours before the grand jury. So Donald Trump either didn't have time to try to appeal it up to the Supreme Court, or he declined to, because remember, the courts have been ruling against Donald Trump on the executive privilege claim over and over and over and over and over again. It would have been pointless to go to the Supreme Court. They probably would not have accepted the appeal or reviewed the case. But boy, just when, historic seems to have lost its meaning. Yeah. But when a vice president testifies about the crimes of the president he served, pretty damn historic.
Yeah, another big effing deal day yesterday. This, speaking of corrupt intent, also seems like a big deal. Washington Post, I know you know this, revealed that behind the scenes, Trump hired a law firm for $750,000 to find voter fraud in 2020. They found nothing. Special counsel Jack Smith and his team at the DOJ questioned the founder of the firm about his work disproving Trump's claims. Ken Block, founder of Simpatico Software, studied more than a dozen voter fraud theories and allegations for Trump's campaigns in late 2020, found all were false. No substantive voter fraud was uncovered in my investigations looking for it, nor was able to confirm any of the outside claims of voter fraud that I was asked to look at. Every fraud claim I was asked to investigate was false. And I believe this is the second. Aren't there two companies he hired so he was told a myriad of times and ways that there was no proof for his claims. So he knew, right?
Yeah. The evidence of Donald Trump's corrupt intent, criminal mens rea, guilty state of mind, that's saying the same thing in three different ways, has been proved over and over and over again. And by Donald Trump's own words, when he was told that there was no election fraud undermining the result, he said, I don't care. Just say there was and leave the rest to me and my Republican allies in Congress. I just expressed to you evidence that proves his corrupt intent beyond a reasonable doubt. The only thing we're waiting for now, Steph, is a federal indictment.
Glenn, speaking of This, what do you call it? You leave it to my congressional friends. How much trouble is Ted Cruz in? Jack Smith wants to look at the recent revealed tapes of Ted Cruz outlining a proposal for overturning the election. These are the Abby Grossberg tapes. He is talking to Maria Bartiromo at Fox News. Grossberg's attorney said she remains committed to cooperating fully with the federal probes. On the tapes, Cruz laid out to Maria Bartiromo his idea of establishing a quote-unquote commission that would investigate Trump's baseless claims of election fraud, give Congress a pretext to reject certifying the electors, a process that would have let Republicans elect Trump in a vote of state house delegations. I said when we heard this tape earlier this week and played it on the show, Glenn, you can dress this up in all the lawyerly senatorial language you want. This is a coup. This is him on tape planning a coup, is it not?
Yeah, he was certainly advocating for the commission of a crime. The question is, did he take enough steps to actually commit a crime when he said, all we need to do is set up this sham, bogus commission, have them declare that election fraud undermined the election's results, and we can install Donald Trump in the White House for a second term over the will of the American voters. I'm sorry, Ted. I have never seen that clause in the Constitution that allows for a sham commission to negate the will, the expressed will of the American voters. So it's deeply corrupt, unpatriotic, and undemocratic. And Jack Smith, I am confident, will get to the bottom of whether it's also criminal, such that Ted Cruz should be charged with a crime.
Yeah. Let's talk about the E. Jean Carroll trial, because boy, women hear us roar. I have to say, she speaks for so many women, I think, Glenn. She is, I think, so brave, and God bless her, she gets her day in court. And also, I think, goes to prove why so much rape goes unreported, right? The bullying? Why didn't you scream? Why didn't you call 911? I mean, and I think she said something like that. Like, this is exactly why a lot of women don't report. And there's Tacopina bullying her. So she was questioned. You were supposedly raped. Joe Tacopina said, I was raped, Carol responded. She said, Tacopina asked why she didn't scream. I love what she said. I'm not a screamer. I was in a panic, fighting. You can't beat up on me for not screaming. People always ask, why didn't you scream? Some women scream, some do not. He raped me, whether I screamed or not. And started sobbing. And she said, if I was trying to make a lie, I would say I was screaming my head off, but I did not scream. I did not scream. I mean, I don't feel like, from what I'm hearing, Tacopina did Trump any favors.
Steph, Joe Tacopina is Exhibit A as to why so many women are unwilling or afraid to report the sexual assault they've been subjected to, because then they get dragged into court. And a guy like Joe Tacopina calls them liars and beats them up in front of 100 people sitting in a public courtroom. Steph, I handled rape and sexual assault cases early on, back in the 80s as a prosecutor. I realized that was just not the kind of cases that I wanted to handle as a career prosecutor. They are extraordinarily difficult. We have career sex offense prosecutors who are doing God's work, helping victims of sexual assault through the extraordinarily painful process. But think about this. The overwhelming majority of people who report sexual assault are telling the truth. And Steph, every one of them get dragged into court and called a liar by the Joe Tacopinas of the world. You know what? I embrace everybody's right to confront and cross-examine their accuser. It's our Sixth Amendment right. But we need to do better by the victims, because sexual assault survivors should not be put through what Joe Tacopina is doing to E. Jean Carroll, in my opinion.
I have to say, I don't know whether it was, I'm sure it was Trump and Tacopina and someone else on his team. I thought my head was going to explode when they say one of the reasons she did this, it's for money, it's for attention. What woman in the universe wants this kind of attention, right? She said, first of all, she said she was inspired by the, stories at the New York Times story on Harvey Weinstein. She said, it caused me to realize staying silent does not work. This morning, but she talked about this morning, for instance, I thought I would just take a peek at my Twitter. I found an onslaught of vile messages, including one calling me a slut, ugly, old. and she said, I couldn't be more proud to be here. So, honestly, I can't say enough about her bravery, because there is no woman in the world that wants who wants this kind of attention. This is what happens to every woman.
And Harvey Weinstein's
forward.
accusers were called liars, and the jury said, yeah, no, Harvey, you're the abuser. R. Kelly's victims were called liars, and the jury said, no, R. Kelly, you're the abuser. I hope that justice is done and this jury verdict goes the same way. But, it gets me so frustrated that anyone who reports a sexual offense gets like dragged through the mud and called a liar when in fact they are not lying. That is not a fair system of justice, in my opinion.
I have a female friend. I told the story this week, Glenn, that I was shocked, that said, well, why did she go in the dressing room with him? And I was like, this is why women don't come forward. If you read the whole story, Glenn, and I'm sure you have, first of all, he's the famous guy. She thinks they're joking around. You're not going to think Donald Trump's going to rape you in a department store. She said they were joking around. She said the door was open to the lingerie. Again, that any woman's going to think this is going to happen, or that she's somehow responsible, because for him raping her, it just makes me crazy. Anyway.
Republicans say they won't cut Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid. But can honest, hard-working middle-class Americans really believe what these politicians say? Republicans said they wouldn't overturn Roe v. Wade. Here's what Supreme Court Justices Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Coney Barrett said during their Senate confirmation hearings.
Roe v. Wade. It is a precedent of the United States Supreme Court. A good judge will consider it as precedent of the United States Supreme Court.
Roe v. Wade. It's settled as a precedent of the Supreme Court.
Roe is not a super precedent, but that doesn't mean that Roe should be overruled.
Well, we saw how that turned out. They played us for fools. Tell your elected officials to keep their hands off of our Social Security and healthcare benefits.